We'll go ahead and start. Good afternoon again, everyone, and welcome to today's NCARB Live. Thank you all for joining us. During our time today, you'll hear from three NCARB experts, Will Cultice, Laura Tiglao, and Brian Vallejo, about different paths to NCARB certification and the advantages of being certified. They will also answer any questions you may have about the certificate during the question and answer portion of our webinar. Before we get started, I'd like to have each of our panelists tell a bit about themselves, about their role at NCARB. And if we could get started with Will, followed by Laura, and end up with Brian.
Hey, Destiny, thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Will Cultice. I'm a senior specialist here in NCARB in the Customer Relations Department, where I've worked with countless other architects and helped them get certified. And I've been working at NCARB for over 5 years and thrilled to be here today.
Thanks, Will, for the introduction. My name is Laura Tiglao. I'm a manager of policy and international relations. In my role, I support education-related programs at NCARB, and that includes supporting customers who are seeking certification through Education Alternative, which I'll talk a little bit about shortly. And Brian, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Laura, and thanks, Destiny. My name is Brian Vallejo. I'm a manager in the Policy and International Relations Department, specifically managing our international relations efforts, which includes the Foreign Architect Path to NCARB Certification, as well as other IR-related programs. But happy to be with you all today.
Thank you all for being here today. We're going to kick off with our panelists' presentation, and then we'll follow up with a question and answer session. And let's go ahead and start with our presentation.
All right. So I'll go ahead and start things off. We're going to discuss the benefits of being NCARB certified, and then I'm also going to discuss the NAAB, or the NAB path, the standard path to NCARB certification. And let's go ahead and kick things off. So the NCARB certificate is the credential that signifies you've met the national standard for licensure as an architect. Helps facilitate licensure across 55 jurisdictions and abroad. Once you're certified, you can have access to NCARB's free continuing education courses, which are automatically reported to AIA. And you can use the NCARB credential in your title, which can be a very important factor for firms when hiring and promoting architects. And also, first opportunity to volunteer on licensing boards and NCARB committees. Destiny, go to the next slide, please. All right. So we're going to discuss reciprocity in more detail. And reciprocity is any additional license that you earn once you've earned your initial license. The easiest way to apply for a reciprocal license is through the NCARB certificate. Once you've earned the NCARB certificate, you can simply order a transmittal of your record to your state board, submit the state board's application, and earn your reciprocal license. All 55 jurisdictions accept the NCARB certificate for reciprocity, 25 require it. And you also have the opportunity to utilize NCARB's mutual recognition agreements in Australia and New Zealand, Canada, Mexico, as well as the United Kingdom. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so as I mentioned, I'm going to discuss the standard path to NCARB certification. And the first one is the education requirement. That is the earning a degree accredited by the National Architectural Accrediting Board. Internally, we call it NAB, so you'll hear me say that several times. The second requirement is the experience requirement, which is completing the AXP experience requirement, or you may have also completed IDP when you earned your initial license. Also the examination requirement, same as the initial license, completing the ARE exams. And the last is the registration requirement, which is earning an architecture license in any of the jurisdictions in good standing. Once you have those four, you're eligible to become NCARB certified. And next slide, please. And before you're certified, we're going to detail the steps you need to take. The first is creating your NCARB record. To do that, you go to my.ncarb.org, select Establish Record, and fill out some information about yourself. And then you've created your digital record. Once you've done that, there's a few steps you need to take to compile the documentation necessary for NCARB to certify you. They're the same as those 4 requirements we just discussed. For the education, you need to have your official transcript sent directly from your university to NCARB. Transcripts cannot come from a certification candidate. The second is to document your AXP hours. And to preface, I should preface this, but if you're already, if you earned your initial license and tested through your NCARB record, completed your AXP with NCARB, we have this information already. If you haven't had an NCARB record before, you will need to document this information, and we're available 5 days a week to answer any questions to help you do that. And also for the last 2, for your exam scores, if you tested through NCARB, we have them already. If not, we're going to request them from the jurisdiction where you earned your initial licensure. And to verify the registration requirement, there's a form, it's called the Verification of Initial Registration form, which will be completed by the jurisdiction where you earned your initial license, signed, and then sent directly to NCARB. Depending on your state, there are different ways. Some states require you to go through their website. Some just go through email. So give us a call or an email and we'll be able to answer that for you. Go to the next slide, please, Destiny. Oh, I'm sorry. That was the end of my presentation. Laura, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Will, for all of that great information. I'm excited to share information about the education alternative paths that NCARB has to certification. If you do not have a degree from a NAB accredited program, you may qualify for one of our education alternative paths to satisfy the education requirement for certification. And the 2 paths that I'll be talking about are 2x AXP and certificate portfolio. Next, let's see here. All right. So much as Will had described the path to certification, the traditional path, I'll be talking about how that looks for 2x AXP. And Destiny, you can just click through all these, so they're going to appear on the slide for us. So let's talk about 2x AXP. This pathway is available to U.S. architects who hold an architecture-related bachelor's degree from a U.S. regionally accredited institution. So degrees determined as architecture-related by NCARB will have a significant amount of architecture-related coursework in the degree program of architecture. So what does that look like? A minimum of 60 semester hours, or the equivalent of 90 quarter hours. Your post-secondary transcripts will be reviewed, so please make sure that your record has all of the appropriate transcripts that we'll take a look at to determine your eligibility. So if you are eligible for 2x AXP, you'll document 2x AXP in each of the experience areas. And I just want to add a quick note here on reporting 2x AXP. Licensed architects are not limited by the reporting requirement. So any previous experience counts for full credit as long as the experience is in line with the AXP guidelines. So in addition to documenting 2x AXP, you will need to complete 3 years of continuous licensure without disciplinary action. So now we'll transition to the second education alternative path, the certificate portfolio. And next slide, please. And again, you can click through all those wonderful circles. So if you do not have an architecture-related bachelor's degree that qualifies you for 2x AXP, you may be eligible to satisfy the education requirement for NCARB certification through certificate portfolio. So this path is available to those with any educational background, including unrelated bachelor's degrees, associate's degrees, foreign degrees, in addition to those who do not have a degree. So similar to 2x AXP, you will also need to be licensed for 3 years continuously without disciplinary action to qualify for this path. Under this path, you will submit a portfolio of your work that demonstrates learning through experience. In total, there are 22 categories to be documented in the certificate portfolio. These come from the NCARB education standard, which is the approximation of the course requirements of a degree from a NAB accredited program. The ESA, and ESA stands for Education Evaluation Services for Architects, is an optional opportunity that some of you may qualify for. This evaluation is completed by the NAB. They will evaluate your transcripts and coursework against the NCARB education standard. If you have an ESA completed, only the areas outlined as deficiencies in your report will be ones that are required for you to complete in your certificate portfolio. So if you are eligible for this option, it is, again, optional, but there is a cost associated with having the ESA completed, and that's $2,500. So as a closing note, for those of you who are considering education alternative, Will mentioned the NCARB licensing requirements tool. I would encourage you to take a look at that to investigate the jurisdictions that you're considering for reciprocal licensure to learn if they will honor the NCARB certificate earned through education alternative. And if you have questions, reach out to the respective jurisdiction to get clarification. So without further ado, I will be passing on to Brian, and he will be discussing the foreign educated and foreign architect paths.
Thank you so much, Laura, and thanks, Will, for getting us started. Hello again. I'm going to discuss the paths most international applicants pursue to earn a license in a U.S. jurisdiction, as well as NCARB certification. As Laura said, those are the foreign educated, which you may know as the ESA path, which we'll briefly go over, and the foreign architect path to certification, which we'll spend most of our time together reviewing. And my goal for you is to have a better and general understanding of the programs, how they differ, who they're intended for, and the requirements. Destiny, next slide, please. But before we dive in, the important point to note is that both paths, the ESA and the foreign architect paths, are means of fulfilling the education component of the standard path to licensure in the US, which Will covered earlier in his presentation. Next slide. And you can also populate all of the circles just like you did with Laura's. Thank you. So with the foreign educated path, or widely known as the ESA path, this path is for individuals who hold an international degree in an architectural related program that is not NAB accredited and are not licensed to practice architecture. The key point here is not being licensed. Through this path, an ESA evaluation is required from the National Architectural Accrediting Board, the NAB, which there is a non-refundable fee for. And typically applicants will need to take additional courses to fulfill any deficiencies the ESA report identifies. This path will also require completion of NCARB's Architectural Experience Program, AXP, and the Architect Registration Exam, the ARE. And after the requirements have been met, applicants can apply for a license in a U.S. jurisdiction and earn NCARB certification. Next slide, please. Thank you. Now, for the foreign architect path, unlike the foreign educated path discussed, is for international architects. These are individuals who received a degree in an architectural related field and received a license, meaning a separate credential to lawfully practice architecture in either a given country, region, or jurisdiction, as we refer to it here at NCARB. Next slide. Thank you. But before diving into the details of the program, please know that there are many available resources to help guide you through this process. First up is the certification guidelines, which is the official rulebook that outlines the program requirements. You have the Foreign Architect Path Manual, which is an in-depth guide that provides step-by-step instructions from start to finish. We also have it available in Spanish, Arabic, and Farsi on our website, so please do check those out. And lastly, for this program, we have the documentation checklist, which is your quick reference guide that outlines the required documents needed to determine program eligibility. Next slide, please. So now that you know about the resources available, let's go ahead and dive into the specifics. Again, the foreign architect path is for international architects who are licensed outside of the United States and have a qualifying degree that led to their license. Similarly to the ESA path, eligible applicants will need to also complete NCARB's AXP and ARE requirements. So how is eligibility determined? First, you'll need an NCARB record. You can always refer to what Will said earlier on how to establish it. Complete the required information in the record, which includes your education, license details, and once you have that completed, you'll need to formally indicate interest in the path. Once you're at this level, we're able to determine your eligibility by verifying your official academic transcripts. Keep in mind, it's the one that led to your license, and by verifying your foreign license through NCARB's credential verification form, or as I like to call it, the CVF. And something very important to always remember is that the CVF must be completed by the entity or the organization that regulates the practice of architecture where you're licensed. Please do not confuse this with your university. And after NCARB evaluates your documents and you're made eligible, there is a certificate application fee that must be paid. And paying the fee will waive the AXP reporting requirement that Laura also touched on. And similarly to US architects, this allows foreign architects to report qualified international experience beyond the 8-month reporting rule to qualify for 100% credit. At this point, eligible applicants can begin testing, and the jurisdiction will be NCARB, not through the jurisdiction you plan to eventually pursue a license with. After eligible applicants complete the 2 programs, AXP and ARE, NCARB will need to re-verify that your license is still active and in good standing, and this can be done with an updated credential verification form. And if everything checks out, you'll receive an NCARB certificate, which you can use to apply for reciprocal licensure in a jurisdiction that accepts certificates obtained through this path. It's a mouthful, but we're going to go over that. Next slide, please. Thanks, Destiny. So how exactly do you know who accepts certificates obtained through the foreign architect path? Well, that's where you'll want to become familiar with NCARB's licensing requirements tool. Here you'll find which jurisdictions accept NCARB certificates obtained through the foreign architect path, the ESA path, if there's any additional requirements, and also obtain the information to the boards of architecture that you're looking to get a license in at some point. And this tool isn't only for international applicants, but an essential tool for all licensure candidates and architects to bookmark, such as those pursuing certification through the standard path as well covered earlier, or those pursuing the education alternative paths to certification Laura discussed. And always keep in mind that the information listed is as reported, so I always recommend reaching out to the licensing boards directly to confirm requirements, but this is always a great place to start. Next. Thank you. Now, I know that we covered a lot of information today, especially in a short period of time, but to break it down, we're going to go ahead and just give you some key points. So for any of the paths to certification covered, you always want to confirm your jurisdiction's requirements and if they accept the pathway you're pursuing. You'll also want to understand and follow the program rules and requirements, and use any and all of the reference materials available to you on our website. And also make sure that any required documents are sent to NCARB through official means. And throughout your journey, if any questions arise, do reach out to us. On the screen, you're going to have some contact information from our customer relations specialist, education alternative, and through the foreign architect path. And remember, you got this. Thank you.
Thank you all for sharing. That was amazing and helpful information. We're going to go straight into our question and answer session. Thank you to all our attendees for submitting questions. Our first question here is for the 2x AXP path. I already have hours recorded for my initial license. Is the 2x path requiring an additional 7,000 hours to what I have already on my record?
Thank you for that question, Destiny. So if you are eligible for 2x AXP, you will be enrolled in the program and you'll have an update on your education tab. So you'll scroll down and you'll be able to see the experience areas. And if there are any areas where you're deficient in 2x the hours. So don't go solely based on the number of hours that you've accumulated as of today. You want to make sure that you're satisfied 2x in each experience area. And when you're eligible, you'll be able to see those updates in your education tab.
Thank you. Next question we have. I see that 8 states do not accept the NCARB education alternative. Do states over time come to accept it?
I think that's another me question. Will, do you want to touch that
Laura,
one?
that is right for you.
So
guys.
for education alternative, I think as well as any of our processes, there's always the opportunity and the chance that things could be updated. So that's why, as Will and Brian mentioned, it's really important to check out that licensing requirements tool and to verify with the individual jurisdictions what their current rules and processes are. So if there is a jurisdiction that's in question for you, you can always reach out and get the most up-to-date information from them. Anything to add, Will?
No, thank you.
Thank you again. Next question we have here. I'm interested in pursuing licensure in New York State. Will they accept the foreign architect path?
I guess that's me. So for the foreign architect path, New York is a highly sought after jurisdiction, but it's very important to note for anyone with a foreign education or a foreign license that is interested in pursuing licensure in New York has their own path to licensure with very specific requirements. So although you will be completing AXP and ARE and NCARB will be part of your licensure journey, the most important thing that I can message that I can relay is to actually reach out to the New York State Board directly. Let them know that you're interested and they will give you the next steps. And then from there, we can all work together on helping you through that process.
Thanks, Brian. Next question we have here. If I meet all the requirements, how do you initiate the certificate process?
Okay, happy to take this one. So once you earn your initial license, recommend that you keep your NCARB record active so you can get certified at no additional cost. When that occurs, sometimes when you earn your initial license, your state board will send NCARB that verification of initial licensure form. When we receive that, the certification process starts automatically and will be completed within 30 business days. If your state does not send that form to NCARB, just give us a call or send us an email. We will start the process to get that verification of initial licensure form. And once we receive it, we'll likely have everything we need. If not, we'll contact you. And then, yeah, you're good to go. Process is started and just need to wait for the evaluation to be completed.
Amazing, thanks. Next question. Do Canadian architects with a Canadian Professional Masters of Architecture and more than 3 years of experience as an architect apply through the foreign architect path?
Will, do you want to take this one?
This sounds a little that foreign architect path in the question. You want it?
So we have a mutual recognition arrangement agreement with Canada. There are exceptions where some folks who are interested in the foreign architect path that have a license in Canada that don't meet the requirements of the MRA can pursue a foreign architect path. However, it's best to first make sure that you don't qualify for the MRA, because that would be the most streamlined approach. Because with mutual recognition agreement, you won't have to take the ARE, the examination. So that will save you some time for sure and some money. But if you don't qualify for an MRA, and that just goes to any of the jurisdictions we have an MRA with, you can always pursue the foreign architect path as long as you meet the requirements of that program.
Thank you, Brian. Next question we have here. Will NCARB accept my WES evaluations?
That's for me as well. So no, for the foreign architect path, just putting it simply, the only evaluation that we accept is the ESA evaluation from the NAB. The WES evaluation, that's, I know that maybe other professions and other entities may use it, but for the purposes of the foreign architect path and for NCARB, ESA is the only evaluation that we will accept. And that's something that you have to actually come to NCARB and express interest in so you can get invited to it. But just to reiterate on the program requirements, for the foreign architect path, we need your official transcripts that led to your license. If your transcripts are not issued in English, then we need an official translation along with the originals. And we have more information on our website, but no equivalency reports, no WES evaluations, nothing that translates or creates an equivalency of your transcripts.
Thanks again. Another question here. Where can I find the list of degrees that qualify for 2 times AXP?
I think that question is for me. Thanks, Destiny. We do not have a list of degrees that qualify for 2 times AXP. Each evaluation that we do is individual, and we have to appreciate that different institutions have different degree requirements, but also students have the opportunity to take different coursework within those degree requirements. So if you are interested in seeing if you're qualified for 2 times AXP, we will do an individual evaluation of your post-secondary transcripts.
Thank you. Another question here. Does the 2 times AXP need to be approved by the architect that I was working under at the time?
So a supervisor is always preferred when submitting those AXP reports. And Will, I'm going to lean on you a little bit as it relates to AXP. Do you want to add from your experience?
Yes. Perfect segue. Thank you. And I breezed past this during my presentation, and I want to get into more detail. So thank you. Yeah, if for whatever reason, after you earned your license, you're working as a sole proprietor, or your former supervisor is deceased or unable to, prove the experience, there are options to complete the AXP requirement, document those hours. You can have them approved by another architect. If you are working, with another professional partner, another licensed architect can approve the hours. Another licensed architect working in the same employer, or also have the option to have a licensed architect who is familiar with you professionally or personally. But again, we're always here to contact us with specific questions so we can help you in your specialized case.
Perfect. Thank you. Next question here. For the portfolio option, is there a resource or guide that lays out the requirements?
Absolutely. So we have the Certificate Portfolio Applicant Guide for those who will be pursuing the certificate portfolio. It outlines expectations, requirements, as well as provides some examples for the exhibits that you'll be creating and uploading into your certificate portfolio. So it's an excellent resource. It outlines everything that you need to know, even before you get started. So if you are thinking about pursuing a certificate portfolio, I would encourage you to go to the NCARB website, take a look, and then if you have specific questions, then we'll be able to answer those for you.
Thanks, Laura. Next question here. For licensed architects who are licensed before the AXP during IDP, how many hours need to be recorded for certification?
I can take that one. So regardless if you completed IDP or AXP to earn your initial license, to get certified, you will need to document the AXP requirement, which is 3,740 hours. If you were licensed before 2011, there is a verification of experience form that can be completed that would meet the requirements for certification. However, if you have the opportunity to document the AXP hours, we highly recommend that you do so. Many states will require documented AXP hours in order for you to earn a reciprocal license in the state.
Thank you, Will. Next question here. For architects licensed in India, the Council of Architecture in India revokes licenses for architects seeking licensure outside India. Can Indian architects still pursue the foreign architect path?
Thanks, Destiny. I'll take that one. Yes, absolutely. So we are very aware that India has a residency requirement that's tied to their architecture credential. And actually our certification guidelines were updated a couple of years ago. So architects that come from or have a license in a country, region, jurisdiction that has a residency requirement that meets specific guidelines, such as India, they won't be penalized and they can continue pursuing because basically for these architects, the only thing holding them back from having an active license is just living in India. And to be able to reactivate it, they would either have to move back or just pay a nominal fee. So yes, to answer shortly, if you are an architect licensed in India, even if you don't have a current active license because you don't meet the residency requirement, you can still pursue this path. And we've been in discussion with their licensing board directly, and they've assured us that they're going to continue filling out our required forms for us.
Perfect. Thanks, Brian. Next question we have here. I have been an owner of my own firm for 4 years. Can I be my own supervisor for 2 times AXP?
So I'm going to defer to Will because I think he just provided a pretty good explanation there.
Yeah, to confirm, also should have mentioned this earlier, you cannot be your own AXP supervisor. You cannot approve your own hours. Like I mentioned earlier, there are options for other architects to verify that experience for you. And like I said too, please give us a call. More than happy to help.
Thank you both. Next question. What are the benefits of obtaining an NCARB certificate? What is the difference between licensure and NCARB certified?
Yeah, so you could even put they watch the presentation again because we're going to have all the slides earlier. But in short, there's a lot of great benefits to go ahead and ease of earning a reciprocal license in different states, free continuing education, the prestige of earning the professional credential, and a few other things. What was the second part of the question, Destiny? I forgot to write it down.
Yeah, no worries. What is the difference between licensure and NCARB certified?
Yeah, so architecture license is a license that allows full practice of architecture in a state. Architecture license is provided by the state registration board. The NCARB certificate is a professional credential for licensed architects. So you are allowed to practice in a state because you hold an active license in the state. But that again is different from earning the NCARB certificate.
And if I may add, Will, just to reiterate, and maybe another way of thinking about it is that NCARB certificate is almost like a passport to being able to practice across jurisdictions. So with an NCARB certificate, that is pretty much your credential that allows you to go expedite and obtain licensure across jurisdictions.
Thank you both. Next question. Can you confirm if you have to take the ARE if you pursue certification through a MRA, Mutual Recognition Agreement?
So currently, the way the mutual recognition agreements have been negotiated is that they're streamlined and they're based off competency, which we have in-depth discussions and assessment of. So right now there is not, you don't have to complete it, the ARE if you're coming through. However, future MRAs, I can't speak for that because every single MRA could be different. But as of right now, an examination is not required, at least not the ARE, because there are jurisprudence exams, which is similar, we can use California, for instance, where they have a very specific exam based on their state that even if you're coming through with an MRA, you still have to meet state requirements.
Great, thanks, Brian. Next question. On education alternative, does the portfolio need to cover your experience as a licensed architect, or will I be able to cover my experience overall?
Thanks, Destiny, for that question. And it is an excellent question. And this is something that is outlined in the certificate portfolio applicant guide. The work that you use for your certificate portfolio, those projects must be completed post-licensure. So you can use work that's completed in another jurisdiction post-licensure. If you're not licensed in that jurisdiction, it needs to be supervised by a licensed architect in that jurisdiction. But yes, all of the work that's included in your portfolio needs to have occurred post-licensure.
Great, thank you. Does NCARB have staff who speak Spanish who can talk through the foreign architect path customers?
I'm happy to take that one. So when you call NCARB's Customer Relations Department, yeah, we do have people on staff who do speak Spanish, so please call us. Or you can also send us an email at customerrelations@ncarb.org and request that we reach out to you, and we'd be happy to do so.
And I would also like to use this opportunity to plug the Foreign Architect Path Manual, which is in Spanish. So that's a great resource for you to read ahead because more likely than not, a lot of the questions you may have will be covered within that manual.
Thank you both. Next question. Regarding the 2x AXP option, there's a line item indicating your degree must have been awarded after earning less than 150 semester credits. Why is that? If I have 154 semester credits, am I disqualified? And if so, why?
I think that question is probably best answered individually. We'd like to look at your record and your transcripts. So please, if you didn't capture that email address on Brian's last slide, it's educationalternative@ncarb.org. Please provide your record number and I can provide answers. And if you'd like to have a follow-up phone call, happy to arrange that for you to provide clarification to your questions and any additional insight that you're looking for.
Thanks, Laura.
Of course.
Next question. If it's determined that your degree does not qualify for 2x AXP, is there a way to take additional courses, continuing education, etc., that would help you meet the requirement?
So that is a good question. As I mentioned, there is the opportunity, if you qualify for an ESA, to have that evaluation completed. That will identify any deficiencies that you may have. In some circumstances, based on the previous education that you've completed, you may not have very many deficiencies. And in that case, you may opt to complete NAB-approved coursework to satisfy those deficiencies in lieu of completing the certificate portfolio. Or there may be opportunities that you have identified to complete some of those deficiencies through NAB-accredited, NAB-approved coursework, and then the remaining deficiencies complete through certificate portfolio. So again, this is a kind of a question where we want to look at all of the information in front of us, but you could have several options based on your previous education and if you choose to have that ESA completed.
Great, thank you. If I'm pursuing the foreign architect path, can I start taking the exam without having finished the AXP?
So there's a few things happening in that question. First, with the foreign architect path, if you are eligible and you've paid the certificate application fee, you can begin testing. But just because you're a foreign architect who expressed interest in the path, you will not be eligible to begin testing. That said, to the other part of that question, you do not have to complete AXP to begin testing. However, completing AXP and or gaining the competencies in specific areas that are covered in the AXP may be beneficial and help you to passing the specific exam divisions.
Amazing, thank you. Next question here. I recently completed my ARE exams, 2 of which were taken under the IPAL program. Will the exams taken under IPAL affect my reciprocity eligibility with states that do not currently accept exams taken under IPAL?
Happy to take that one. So congratulations on finishing the AREs. No, that's going to have no effect. The requirement is that you completed the ARE exams. So if you've done so, no matter what jurisdiction, you're good to go. So yeah, you've finished the examination requirement.
Amazing, thank you. Next question we have here. Can you talk about the timeline for pursuing the certificate portfolio path? How long does it take for NCARB to review the portfolio?
Thanks, Destiny, for that question. So when we receive the portfolio, we would like to have our evaluators complete that evaluation within 6 weeks. But something important to keep in mind is that our architect evaluators are volunteers. So sometimes based on availability, potentially it could take a little bit longer. You could also receive your review a little bit faster. So again, this is a situation we can best advise you in the moment when you're there based on our evaluator availability and help shape and manage your expectations as to what your timeline will look like specifically. Thanks for that question.
Thank you. Next question here. Does NCARB offer a path to reciprocity in the entire EU and not just the UK?
Unfortunately, no. So we do not currently have any mutual recognition agreements with the EU at the moment, but in general, we are discussing ways in which we can potentially negotiate and look at EU. As a prospect, it's just, without getting too much detail, it's you can't have an MRA with a specific country within the EU. You have to negotiate directly with the entire EU, which throws additional layers of complexities when you're referring to that. So at the moment, it's just UK.
Got it. Thank you. Next question we have here. For another 2 times AXP question for you, Laura. For the 2 times AXP program, are those 7,480 hours post-licensure, or do hours reported for initial licensure count?
Those will work as well. So we're looking at in total the number of hours that you have reported and documented on your record. But again, just keeping in mind that it's 2 times AXP in each experience area. So I know it might say satisfied right now if you're looking at your record. After your evaluation, if you are eligible for 2 times AXP and we enroll you in that program, that will change in your education tab, and you'll have access to the information that outlines all of your experience hours, where they've been applied, and any hours of deficiency.
Great, thank you. Next question. Can we register in any state for initial licensure, regardless of where we reside or tested?
Yeah, happy to take that one. So your state architecture license, you're going to need to meet that state's requirements. So that question is best directed to the state board. There are some states that do have a residency requirement and some that do not. So you can look up that state contact information on NCARB's license requirements tool, and they'll give you the definitive answer.
Thanks, Will. Next question. Can you explain the credential verification form from a foreign regulatory body in more detail, please?
Sure. So there are 2 steps needed to determine eligibility for the foreign architect path. That is, one, for us to evaluate your transcripts that led to your licensure, and the other one is verifying that you have a license outside of the US that meets the requirements of the program. And that is done through the credential verification form. And basically, this is just a 3-page form that is completed by the entity or organization that issued and regulates the practice of architecture that gave you your license. And what they're going to be doing is filling out that form on your behalf, letting NCARB know, for example, your license number, when it was issued, is there an expiration date? Do they have a mechanism to track disciplinary actions? Is there ranking within the licensure, as well as their contact information and a few other things? So it's not a difficult form. It's just providing some basic information that we need to get in order to evaluate and determine eligibility. But key thing for there is this is not a form that your university fills out. This is not a form that you as a licensure candidate fills out. This is a form that must be completed by the organization that issued and regulates your license to practice architecture.
Great, thank you. How soon after completing 3 years of uninterrupted practice as a licensed professional in the US, can I submit the certificate portfolio?
Thanks, Destiny. That's a great question. So just keeping in mind all of the projects that you're using as exhibits in your certificate portfolio must be completed post-licensure. But once you qualify, hit that 3-year mark, if perhaps you've been taking advantage of the certificate portfolio applicant guide in advance, and kind of cultivating your projects and exhibits that you'd like to include in your certificate portfolio, if you're ready on the day that you hit that 3-year mark, we can provide access to your certificate portfolio so you can upload your exhibits and complete everything that's necessary to submit it. So again, if you'd like to be proactive and plan, take a look at that certificate portfolio applicant guide. And if you have questions, you can reach out to Education Alternative and we can help clarify those for you.
Thank you. Next question we have here. If I'm interested in pursuing the foreign architect path, can I begin submitting AXP experience before submitting the paperwork to be eligible for the path?
So in short, yes. But what I recommend is, one, if you're actively working in a setting A or setting O area, please do go ahead and report those qualified hours. But if we're talking about hours that are past the reporting requirements, I recommend waiting until eligibility is determined, just because it makes things a little bit more streamlined. Because if you are eligible, again, that reporting requirement is listed and or waived. So any past experience would qualify for 100% credit. So that would be my recommendation.
Thanks, Brian. Next question we have here. Do you need to complete continuing education hours to renew your NCARB certificate?
So there is no continuing education requirement to hold an NCARB certificate to keep your certificate active. You just need to pay your annual renewal fee and keep at least one state architecture license in good standing. So again, yeah, no continuing education requirements to keep your certificate active.
Thanks, Will. Next question. For the certificate portfolio, do 3 years under a licensed architect need to happen under the same architect?
Short answer, no. You just need to have 3 years of continuous licensure without disciplinary action. So you could work under one supervisor or many supervisors. Our concern is that you've satisfactorily completed those 3 years of continuous licensure without disciplinary action.
Thanks, Laura. Next question. I have a license in a U.S. jurisdiction and also abroad. Can I still apply for the foreign architect path to certification?
So they're licensed in a U.S. jurisdiction. It would, So short answer is yes, potentially. It just depends on the individual's given circumstances. So for example, if they were licensed with a NAB accredited degree and you just happen to have a foreign license, I wouldn't recommend going through this path. Just because the foreign architect path could be limiting at times, because not all jurisdictions accept NCARB certificates obtained through this path, whereas all jurisdictions will accept it through the standard path. But for those that maybe, let's use New York as an example. If you went through New York's path directly, and then you received license, but also have a foreign license, yes, by all means, feel free to apply to the foreign architect path. We'll still need to evaluate your transcripts, and we'll need a credential verification form to make sure your license is still active and good standing abroad, and it meets our requirements, and you can get certified. But it's one of those cases, just like Laura mentioned earlier, since that's very specific, definitely email us or call us, and we're happy to take a look at your case.
Thanks, Ryan. Another question here. For the portfolio option, how much time do you anticipate the candidate to spend preparing each exhibit?
Oh, that's a good question. It's probably a very individual question. This could be related to the number of categories that you're assigned. You know, if you're assigned all 22 categories, compared to someone who's had an ESA completed and maybe only has 5. But this work is really up to you. And I know that it can be challenging to identify time within your already busy schedule to identify projects, develop exhibits, upload this information to your certificate portfolio. What I would encourage you, everyone, you know, time is finite, and sometimes it can be very difficult to stay motivated. What I would encourage you to do is to think of it through the lens of really celebrating all of the work that you'll be using in your certificate portfolio, reflecting on those projects as you're completing those exhibits. And hopefully that can give you the motivation and inspiration that you need to complete all of the required categories for your portfolio. So again, a highly individual dependent situation based on your circumstances. So again, if you have questions, as Brian and Will have mentioned, reach out to us. We're more than happy to have a conversation, give you a little bit more insight into the process.
Amazing. Thanks, Laura. This will be our last question for close to the end of our time here. So here we are. Do I need anything to get certified after I pay the certification application fee and create my NCARB record?
Yeah, so it depends. Again, you may have heard us say this a few times. If you have an existing NCARB record and if you tested through NCARB and documented your AXP with NCARB, we likely have everything that you would need. But as a general rule of thumb, please call us or send us an email. We need to see your record. We need to see what is in it. Most likely, yes, you may need to have some additional things added, especially the verification of initial licensure form. But again, give us a call and we'll be able to tell you exactly what that is.
Thanks, Will. Again, we're close to the end of our time here today. So if you all could share a key takeaway from today's webinar, that'd be great.
I'll go ahead and go first. So whether you're newly licensed or have been practicing for many years, NCARB is here to support you throughout your career. Getting your NCARB certificate is a great way to expand your professional reach. So again, we do want to hear from you. We want to help you get certified. So please give us a call or email.
I think that's a great takeaway, Will. Thank you. And I'll just add that NCARB certification can provide a path to reciprocal licensure in jurisdictions that maybe required a NAP degree. So if you're my education alternative folks who don't have a NAP degree, just keep in mind that the NCARB certificate might get you the license that you want in that jurisdiction. So again, make sure that you're referencing the NCARB licensing requirements tool. But take advantage of this opportunity, expand your professional reach and your licenses. And Brian.
Thanks, Lauren. Great points as always. So I know a lot of information was shared, but for my international applicants that are interested in pursuing the foreign architect path, remember, NCARB only needs two key things from you to determine eligibility: your official transcripts that lets your license, and a credential verification form. I know the process may seem daunting, but we truly are here to help and guide you through this process. So please, please, please reach out to us. We're here for you.
Great. Thank you all for sharing and thank you all for being here today. Like they all have said, all of our wonderful experts have said, we are here to help you all. So please reach out for any concerns or questions. Also, a big thank you to all of our viewers for joining us today. We hope our program experts were able to answer all of your questions about the NCARB certificate. If you weren't able to see the entire webinar, you'll be able to watch the recording later on our YouTube channel. And lastly, to stay in the loop on NCARB's updates, programs, and latest resources, please follow us on social media. Our handle is @NCARB on all channels. Thank you all and have a great afternoon.